Today's guest went through fertility challenges not once, but twice to build her family and experienced so many losses along the way. But what makes Kelsie's story so interesting is that she chose to share her journey publicly through every step. And this brought her a combination of comfort and support, but also a huge amount of criticism. This is such a relatable conversation that you won't want to miss. Welcome to Your Journey to Fertility. This is the podcast that blends both science with spirit to give you all the tools you need as you navigate your fertility journey. I'm your host, Jennifer Edmonds, and for the last 15 years, I've been helping women on their journeys to motherhood and beyond. I believe that combining the latest scientific research along with the best energetic and mindset practices will help you to avoid putting your life on hold and bring you closer to your baby. Here each week, you'll learn ways to support your fertility and trust your body so you can stop stressing that you'll never have a baby and finally walk your path to motherhood. This is the Your Journey to Fertility podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your time and being here with me today. I have a really special episode coming up for you. Kelsie, you may know as Maiden to Mother if you follow her accounts on social media. Kelsie has been sharing her fertility journey for many, many years now. She started back when she was trying for her first baby, I think in around 2019 or 2020. And she has continued to share her pregnancy and postpartum journey and now her second infertility and pregnancy journey as well. And she's amassed quite a big following over the years. And I just find it so admirable and so interesting that some people are so willing to put themselves out there publicly. It wasn't something that I felt comfortable doing or sort of safe or even able to consider doing when I was struggling on my own journey. So to be able to see someone put their face to their story and talk about things so openly, I think is an incredible thing to do. But it comes with its challenges. I think originally Kelsie started sharing online because it brought her a sense of community and support, which is why we're all there, right? It's the way to find people when you can't find them close to where you are. But being so public, as we well know, comes with its challenges of criticism. And she experienced a huge amount of those along the way and still does. So it'll be really interesting for you to hear how she handles that and give you some advice and some inspiration how you can handle that within your own journeys as well. Kelsie, I have known since she was trying for her first child. So it's really lovely to be able to bring her onto the podcast, sort of a full circle moment where she came back to work with me for her second as well. So this is a story that I think you're going to really relate to, and she's just a beautiful speaker with such an open heart. So I hope you enjoy. Here's Kelsie. Kelsie, it is such an honor to have you here, and you are one of those people who I am so lucky to have known for not just your first journey of trying to conceive, but also your second. So that takes us back a few years. We met quite a while ago now. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Can we just start by learning a little bit about you and your fertility journey?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to know you and be friends and colleagues, and to be able to have an opportunity to share more about my journey it's such a privilege. So thank you for having me. Yeah, my journey to motherhood was definitely not conventional. So it's almost kind of surreal to talk about, because I, for many years, did not think I was going to be a mom. I didn't think I wanted to be a mom. I had an unexpected miscarriage very young. I was like 18, 19 years old. And I was not even thinking about having kids yet. It was not even on my radar. And the traumatic experience I went through led to several doctors saying, hey, if you do want to have kids, it's probably not going to be very easy. So right from the start, I had kind of zero expectations about being a parent, and I'd kind of made my peace with that. And for many years, I had decided I didn't even want to get married and have kids and do the whole mom thing. And then one day I kind of woke up and changed my mind, which is hard to admit. as somebody who, was very adamant for a very long time about, no, I'm not having kids. It's not in the cards for me. It's not something I want. I literally woke up one day and did a complete U-turn. But it's okay to change your mind. And I'm glad I did. I'm very lucky to have a healthy, almost 2-year-old daughter now and another baby on the way. And it's just absolutely crazy to think about after all I've been through. But I also am kind of grateful that when I went into this part of my life and trying to have babies and all that, I did kind of have that background. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and I knew that I would need to kind of seek support right from the start. And so even though it was kind of a long and difficult journey to conception, it was something that I knew wholeheartedly that I wanted to do regardless of the obstacles.
I relate to that so much. I didn't want to be a mum at all during my teens and even my 20s. I thought, no, this isn't for me. And I don't really get it. I've never had that feeling that so many women talk about. And then I met my husband and everything changed. And I never saw that coming in a million years. And all of a sudden, it was all I wanted. All I wanted was to just grow our family and just to expand that, that feeling that you have when you know you're with the right person. And I relate to that so much. My gosh. Can you take us back to your first journey? And I know you went through several losses and then you had a couple of diagnoses as well. So what did that first journey to becoming a mom look like for you?
It was, I would say, pretty typical at the beginning. I was with an amazing partner. He is already a dad at that point. And, when you see somebody you love do something they love, it just, it sparked that in me. I was like, you know what? I do want this part of the journey for us too, not just seeing him being a great dad. I wanted to be kind of a part of that. Being a stepmom is a very unique and beautiful journey too, but I found myself wanting to do the pregnancy and birth and all of that kind of stuff too, that part of parenthood. So we started much like many other people do, where you're just not trying and we'll just see what happens. And even though I'd had that medical background where the doctor said, hey, this is probably not going to go so smoothly for you, I thought, well, there's always a chance. You never know. People find out they're pregnant all the time and had no idea that that could be me. And so we started with the fun part, right? Just kind of hoping and wondering and curious, and we'll throw in a prenatal vitamin and a smoothie here and there. And as the months go on, you start to think, well, okay, maybe those doctors were right, and I'm not just going to be that miracle case that gets pregnant without any help. And so we slowly started to add things, acupuncture, some extra basic blood testing, and I'm sure you can relate to how quickly that it just takes off. As soon as you kind of cross that line from not really thinking about it to thinking about it, it's really hard to turn off. And so we just kept adding different things to our routine, seeing different doctors, trying different supplements, and seeing different types of practitioners, traditional Chinese medicine, I even went to a chiropractor that's specialized in, alignment for fertility purposes. You name it. I tried it probably. And it took probably about a year for us to kind of say, okay, we really need to sit down and come up with a plan if we want this to happen, because it becomes very expensive and tiring and taxing, just, adding all of these little pieces, hoping one of them is going to be the thing that works. And we did experience a pregnancy loss on the way too, which always kind of, it's, for me, I hate to say it's bittersweet, because you don't really want to think of there being a sweet part of losing a baby, but it kept us motivated. It kept us going. We felt like we were close. Like, okay, conception is possible. What's the next piece to healthy conception? And we did end up working with several different fertility clinics until we kind of found the right fit. And then once we found the right fit, it happened for us. And I'm just so grateful that I had that seed planted in my heart, that I knew it was a journey I wanted to go on, even if it wasn't going to be easy. Because even when it wasn't easy, it still felt like, well, what's the other option? Not taking the medication and having no chance of having a baby, or taking the medication, which comes with all of the appointments and the testing and the tracking and all that, but knowing there was a chance. And, nobody knows how long the journey is going to take. Even if you do something like IVF, that's very specific and is kind of a more controlled timeline, there's still no guarantees. You still have no clue whether, it's going to work out for you on the first try or the 10th try. And I just knew that it was a journey that I needed to see through until I felt like we had tried everything possible, right? And so that for us included surgeries and medications and lots and lots and lots of just hope and faith, which is the hardest part because you can't control any of that. You have to just trust it at some point. And I feel so lucky that did work out for us, because I know it does not work out for everybody, regardless of how much you try.
Was there a point in that pregnancy where you felt safe or comfortable, or you got to the point where you're like, no, this is okay. This is a done deal now?
Nope. Yes. Every step of the way, there's something to worry about. At first you're worried about, will I get pregnant? Then it's, will I have a miscarriage? And then it's, will my baby be healthy? There's risks all the way up until birth. You can have a healthy baby all the way through your labor, and then all of a sudden things can go very, very wrong and very differently very quickly. And sometimes there's nothing you can do to control that. And then you bring your baby home, and then you're worried about SIDS and you're worried about allergies. And, it's just, there's always going to be something to worry about at every stage. And while there are milestones that feel better than others, I just passed the point in this pregnancy that people refer to as viability. Once you get past that 24-week mark, where baby would have a better chance of survival if they came early, and hospitals have the technology that they need to support you at that stage, there's a little bit of relief. But then there's still always that fear of, well, what if something happens and there's nothing we can do about it? Once you've kind of entered the fertility treatment and pregnancy loss community, and you learn just how many things can go wrong at any stage without warning and without anything you can do about it, part of it is comforting. It takes a little bit of pressure off. Not every pregnancy outcome is directly related to me. It's not my fault, but at the same time, there's not a lot you can do to prevent it. And so you are still kind of in the hands of fate, whether you want to be or not, even if your pregnancy is medically supported, even if, you're going for all the scans and tests that you can, and you have all the information you can, there is still this part of conception and pregnancy and birth that science and medicine just can't get perfect. And that's part of the magic of it for me. But it's also very scary to have to let go and say, I've done all I can. I've taken my prenatal vitamins. I'm eating well. I'm exercising. I'm going to the doctor to check on things. And then that's all you can do is just trust that it's going to work out.
You can't unknow these things, can you? Once you end up, I was going to say, once you dive into this community, but you don't dive into it. You just get thrown into it, basically. You can't unknow, and the stories that you hear, and oh my goodness, it blows my mind every day what some women go through. And I remember being pregnant again after I had lost a baby, and I had not an easy pregnancy, but the baby was perfectly fine. And I just remember, driving to the hospital. I was 39 weeks to have him, thinking, I had no cause for concern, but I'm going to lose him. I'm still going to lose him. And he was fine. I was fine. But these things, gosh, they just stay with you, don't they? My goodness. Oh, you mentioned this idea of just being able to hand over things a little bit to fate, which is a really hard thing to do, this idea of surrendering and just trusting. And you have this beautiful term that you coined that I absolutely love, which is trusting to conceive. So can you talk a little bit about why you came up with that term and what it means for you?
I definitely didn't come up with the term. I definitely heard it at some point.
I'll credit you.
I don't want to take credit for that, because there's definitely lots of other people that have said that term before me. But I definitely felt really connected to that term because there's this pressure to me that comes with the word trying to conceive.
Mm.
And, there is a part of it that's trying. You have to try, otherwise it's not going to happen. But there was also freedom in connecting to that idea of trust, because at the end of the day, that's what you have to do. I can take the medication, I can go to my appointments, I can do the deed, I can do all the things that you need to do to try to get pregnant. And you still have to trust that it's going to work. I still have to trust that the medication is going to do their job. I still have to trust that conception is going to happen and my baby's going to come here to meet me. And to have trust in that process for me really was the whole foundation of it. You can do everything right, even in something very controlled like IVF. You can have the perfect embryo, you can have the perfect uterine lining, you can place the embryo directly into the uterus. I've even heard of protocols where they glue it in, and there's still a part that you cannot control. You cannot guarantee any part of conception or pregnancy as much as you can try and get there. 99% of your situation can be controlled. And there's still a part where you have to trust. And there's a lot of trusting to conceive that feels like you're out of control. But to me, it was the opposite. Leaning into trust made me feel like I was in control, that I was doing everything I possibly could. And the rest is just, again, that piece that science and medicine still hasn't figured out. There's still no guarantees. And so that was kind of freeing for me too, because it's like, I've done all I can, and whatever will be, will be. And, I can go to bed at night knowing that I've done everything that I am comfortable doing. And the rest is really just in the face of the universe or God or whoever or whatever it may be. And I don't even know what that extra piece is. So what else can you do but trust? And if it doesn't work out, it's not for lack of trying. It's not because I didn't take my prenatal vitamin on cycle day 7 and that messed up the whole cycle. Like, even if everything were to go according to plan, there's still that piece that we can't control. And so that was really freeing for me to kind of connect to that aspect of it. And I like sharing that with people because until I had heard the term, I had never thought of my journey as being something that I really had to lean into trust for. And I'm very lucky that it worked out the way that it did for me. And even though I did trust that I was going to conceive, I still had to try. And I know that. And it's not like I just said, okay, whatever happens, happens. There was a meeting in the middle where I had done everything I could, and I still had to trust that it was going to work out. And that's still part of parenthood too. You do everything you can to keep your baby safe and to make sure your kids are thriving and healthy. And then you just have to trust that, some random act of horror is not going to happen. You still have to trust that some unexpected health problems are not going to come up. And so to me, that really represented not only my journey to conceive, but my journey through parenthood as well.
Absolutely. Can I ask you about your second journey then? So how old was your little one before you started to try again?
So we were kind of at a point, I'd say when she was about 8 or 9 months old, where my partner and I had decided, but let's do the not trying thing and just see what happens. Because before I got pregnant with my daughter, I had 2 kind of more major fertility related surgeries that kind of made a big difference, I think, in my body. So we were really curious to see if the impact of those surgeries would carry forward into the future, or if it was just kind of a fluke that I got pregnant very quickly after my last surgery. And so we did the not trying thing for a few months, and I did actually fall pregnant naturally with no medication or any support. And that did end up being a very early pregnancy loss, which was definitely hard on us because for the first time, it seemed like everything was going the way it's supposed to go. We were relaxed and having fun and not thinking about it, and it happened. And if you've been through so many cycles of intentionally trying and taking medication and doing the monitoring and doing all the things, it just felt like this was too good to be true. Like my body could just conceive on its own without anything, like not even one medication. And I still feel very lucky to have conceived that way because, again, it was devastating to lose, but it gave me hope. It's like, oh my goodness, there's a step that my body was able to take on its own. I could achieve conception, which was such a huge barrier for such a long time. And so that was approximately 10 months postpartum. My daughter was about 10 months old when I conceived and lost that baby. And that kind of triggered for us like this spark of like, you know what? We were really excited. There was no fear. There was no hesitation. There was no, oh my gosh, how are we going to do this? It was just instant delight and excitement. Like, sure, 2 under 2 is going to be crazy, but what a blessing. Like how fun that we didn't have to go through all the heartbreak that we did the first time to get to this place. Like it felt like a gift, felt like, a sign from the universe that we had been put on this path because it was something that we were meant to do and not just something that I wanted. There's almost a feeling of selfishness that, I experienced during that time too. Cause it's like, I'm lucky enough to have one baby. I know many people who have been trying for a baby for a very long time and still haven't had their first. So for me to have had a healthy baby and then conceive again, it almost felt too good to be true. And I felt a little bit guilty even. And so after that experience, we did decide to go back on fertility medication, just to support my hormones because I was concerned that maybe that was a reason I had the miscarriage, is maybe my hormone levels weren't optimal. Could have been anything, I'm not sure, but that was kind of our speculation. So we did end up doing 5 rounds of fertility medication after that before I got pregnant with this baby. And it didn't feel at all like when we were taking fertility medication the first time. When we were trying to have my daughter, it felt like a desperation. Like I had to take any medication that was available to me. Fertility resources are very limited in my area, and it's really difficult to kind of get in with fertility doctors and get access to medications and monitoring and things like that. And so there was kind of a desperate feeling like I want to do the pregnancy full term birth thing at least once. I want to try breastfeeding. I want to know what it's like to raise my own child at least once. And so now it was like any pregnancy felt like a bonus after that. And, even though we did have to go through several rounds of doing the medication, and that comes with its own level of mental stress, making sure the medication's going to work, trying to track and make sure that we get our timing right so it's not a waste, things like that. It still felt completely different because it all felt like a bonus blessing this time. Like I feel so lucky to have my daughter that, growing our family no longer felt like something that was out of reach, that I was taking for granted. Like I'd be lucky to just have one. It kind of felt like, oh, wait a minute, like it's normal for people to want to have multiple kids and feel like that's an option. And I don't have to kind of downplay it for myself and say, oh, I'm just lucky to have one. I can actually, have those goals and those dreams of having a bigger family and having, siblings close in age for my little one. And that's not a selfish thing, and you've gone through so much and you just feel so lucky to have one. You kind of forget that it's a very normal thing to want to have more than one child.
It really is. Gosh, the conversation of secondary fertility is a very big one. I would say close to half of my students, I would say, would be experiencing secondary infertility. And it's interesting, the ones that didn't struggle to have their first baby. It's almost like they come with this like sense of, I need to apologize for being here. And no, like no one asks someone who conceives easily, why do you want to have another child? It's like, why do we think that we shouldn't also want to have more than one child even if it was difficult the first time? Anyway, that might be a conversation for another day, but thank you for raising that because it really is something that we don't talk about enough. So I like to make sure I talk about it enough that it stays on topic. So I would love to ask you about your experiences with with using the beautiful tools of yoga and meditation. So I met you when you were trying to have your daughter. And I think that everything you were saying about this idea of leaning into trust is probably what draws a lot of people to yoga, I find, because especially if you're not a religious person and you don't really have that kind of strict guideline around, spirituality, but you feel like there's something bigger at play during your journey. And I think that's what draws a lot of people to yoga, because it is, yes, it's all very sciencey and there's lots of research and that's all great. And we can back up what we're doing with science, fine. But there is just this little extra thing that it gives you, I think. So can you talk about your experience with it?
Oh, I'm happy to. I found yoga when I was about 15 or 16 years old. And I remember I had a VHS that I
You
could
did
pull
not.
into my little TV that had the little built-in VHS player. And I don't even remember whose yoga video it was or whatever, but I remember as a teenager in my bedroom just popping in this little workout video and just falling in love with the process and just thinking to myself, like, wow, this just feels good. And at 16, I had no clue why. I didn't know the science behind it. I didn't know the history behind practicing yoga. I was just like, wow, this is great. This feels good on my body. This feels good on my mind. Let's do more of it. And I actually developed a really deep connection with my yoga practice over the years. I ended up being one of those people that was at the studio probably 3 to 5 days a week. I did aerial yoga. I've done like all kinds of, hot yoga. I really, really just fell in love with the whole idea and the whole practice. And so it was a very natural progression for me to include yoga in my fertility journey. I'm somebody that I practice when I feel good and I practice when I don't feel good. And so to have something consistent that was always there for me, regardless of how I was feeling, regardless of where I was at, like you only need this much room in your bedroom on my little dorm room, the little aisle between my bed and my desk. That was all I needed to practice. And I could go outside and connect with nature. I could go inward and connect with myself if I wanted to, or I could just tune into the instructions and just go through the motions. I have always loved how yoga has something for me, regardless of what it is that I need. If I need something high intensity, you've got it. If I need something slow and relaxed, you've got it. And so going on the chaos of a fertility journey, it was very grounding in more ways than one. It was grounding, in the physical sense of doing a practice and feeling grounded and feeling connected to the earth and feeling connected to some level of spirituality. I don't really follow a specific religion or a specific mindset, but I have always felt like there is something more out there to connect to. I don't know what it is, but I'm going to go on that journey is kind of I've always approached it. And I was so excited to find your yoga program because I am someone that thrives on structure. So having specific practices for different parts of my cycle or different parts of my journey made such a huge difference to be able to kind of connect, this big, huge world that is yoga with this little world that is my experience with yoga. And I really, really enjoy having tools. So, thinking, okay, my period's about to come and I don't feel good. So let's find a yoga practice that is good for that. And, there's still lots of room within yoga to accommodate and do moves that feel good to my body and, check out when I'm done and whatever, there's no rules. It's not like I have to see it through if I don't feel like it. If I want to be done, it can be done. And when you're going through fertility treatment, there's not a lot of things that you can just stand up from and turn off when you're done with it. A lot of things you have to go for the ride. And so it kind of brings some control back too. Whereas there's a lot of things on a fertility journey that are completely out of your control. And being able to say, like, this is my 20 minutes, or this is my hour, or I'm going to go practice in person because that's what I feel like I need, or I'm going to practice in my bedroom because that's what I feel like I need. It gave me more choices, and it's always there for me, right? It's something that has always, it's not going anywhere. I can practice without an instructor. I can practice without a DVD. It can just be me and my body. And when you've gone through things that make you question your body, it's nice to have even just one little thing that makes you feel like I am strong. Like I can do this, whatever this may be, but it's school or work or fertility journeys. It's nice to have something that, physically works those emotions through your body without you necessarily having to always think about it and get real deep with it. Meditation has been kind of newer to me over the years. The meditation practice came to be much deeper kind of after I had been doing yoga for a very long time. But being able to even just turn the mindfulness part off when I needed a break and just be in my body is something that I still always go back to. There are some days where a meditation is exactly what I need, and there are some days where a meditation is the opposite of what I need, and I just need to move. And yoga has just always been there for me. And I was so, so happy to find your program because it was exactly what I needed. It was the best of, the traditional practices of yoga and meditation combined with the very specific thing that I was going through and being on a fertility journey, whether that's including medications and appointments or not, it's still on your mind every day. As soon as you think, oh, there's a possibility I could be pregnant, how do you just turn that off? And so I found if I were practicing yoga, even just for 10 or 15 minutes and just focusing on the movements of my body, I would realize at the end, oh, okay, I was able to kind of turn my fears off there for a minute. And it makes a difference. It physically makes a difference, even if mentally you don't feel like it does.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's it, isn't it? The one thing while I would love a magic wand and I would love for every woman or couple who comes to, work with me, I wish I could say, ding, pregnancy for you, ding. But no, but until I do get that magic wand, the one thing that I can always absolutely promise is that you will find that connection back with your body because it's something that we completely lose trust in, or it's taken away from us, this trust in our body, when we're going through things like fertility treatments. You're handing over your body to doctors and test results, and you're being told this and told that, and you think, well, why can't I do this one thing that is so easy for most people? And it really disconnects you from your body. And over time that leads to a disconnection of, well, why do I feel the way that I feel? What's happening in my body that perhaps I haven't noticed? And if I can take that time just to give it, like you said, just those 10 minutes sometimes, gosh, the things that we can uncover about ourselves is amazing. Thank you for sharing all of that. I want to ask you, I love asking people this because I get asked this myself a lot with people who are trying to conceive. The month or the months that you did end up falling pregnant with your babies, what was different? What did you do differently?
I love that you asked that question because it's actually one of my least favorite questions to be asked. And that's because I feel like it puts it out there that there's one thing you can do that's going to change it all. And for some people, that may be true. Spending a lot of time on the internet and in the TTC community, that is one of the most common questions when people get pregnant is, well, what did you do differently? Someone asked me yesterday, how did you break the recurrent pregnancy loss cycle? And I stopped and I'm like, I don't feel like I ever did break that cycle. I mean, I know, yes, technically I do have a baby, but I've also still lost a baby. I do still feel like I am in that cycle, but I can see how from the outside, it's like, okay, well, what did you do then that finally made it work? I did 14 rounds of ovulation induction. And so for a lot of people, it's like, well, what was the difference that last cycle? And I have no clue. A lot of the things were the exact same. And there may have been one little thing that was different, but I don't know. I feel like every single cycle, there was something a little different, and there was a lot that was the same. And I feel like a huge part of it is just luck. It's just timing. It's just not giving up. And it's hard to say, oh, just don't give up, because I know how it feels to hear that and to think, well, that's easy for you to say when you're on the other side of it. But really, that's how I saw it for me is, if I stopped taking the medication, I didn't ovulate, there'd be no baby. For me, it was that simple. So I don't really think there was much I actually did differently to conceive. But I think the thing that made the biggest difference for me is I did have two surgeries. I had a uterine septum removal. So my uterus, instead of being like a nice open cavity, it had a septum in it that was kind of dividing my uterus in two. And so I think that made a huge difference, was creating a more optimal environment for a baby to actually grow. And a couple months before I got pregnant with my daughter, I had kind of a more rare procedure called ovarian drilling. And it's not really widely done. It's got kind of mixed success rates, but I honestly feel like I was just one of those lucky people that it happened to be the right procedure for. Because a couple months after we did the procedure, I did conceive my daughter. And I have no clue if those surgeries had any difference. I might have still gotten pregnant if I'd never had those surgeries. I might have still gotten pregnant if I hadn't been taking the fertility medication. I have no idea. I, again, just have to trust that something worked, something made the difference. You can do the same protocol over and over again and have it not work, and then all of a sudden it does. I would love to say there was, one specific thing I did that made all the difference, but I really truly in my heart just feel like I got very lucky, and I kept going. I kept giving us the opportunities to conceive, and timing and luck was just on our side. I really do feel like luck, unfortunately, was a big part of my journey.
And that's not what people want to hear. People want the thing, and they want to know exactly what it was and how they can replicate that. I always tell my students, the month before I fell pregnant with my son was one of those like perfect months where my cycle was perfect. My husband and I had this like lovely, relaxing week around ovulation. It was just, I was seeing all of these like signs. My spirit baby was everywhere. I was like, this is the month. And it wasn't. And then the next month, I ovulated on like day 9, and I had an awful cycle. I had so much PMS. My husband and I were just constantly arguing. Like it was just disaster. And that was the month I conceived. And it's like, I don't have a good answer for you here, unfortunately. And I'm very sorry about that.
Right?
So,
I wish I did. I wish there was one little thing that I added and that did it. But even if it did, I have no clue if that's what did it. I still might have gotten pregnant without it. There's a lot of things that contributed. I was doing acupuncture and taking herbs and supplements and taking the fertility medication. And that's really all you can do is just try different things, because you never know. You never know it's going to be the one or two things that do make a difference. For a lot of people, it is. And there's a couple things that may have been a little bit coincidental. I did try the Mucinex trick or whatever, where people try and take that. And I will say the 2 times I've taken Mucinex are the 2 times I got pregnant with my daughter in this. So maybe that was the magic thing. But I really hate putting that out there, because it could have been a complete fluke. If I hadn't taken the Mucinex, I still might have gotten pregnant. I took letrozole. I was on the same dose. I was on 10 milligrams when I got pregnant with my daughter, and I was on the same dose when I got pregnant with this baby. But I also got pregnant once in between without any medication at all, not even a cold medication. I mean, there's no way to know. And I really truly wish there was a way to look back and, go for a test or something and say, oh, that's what it was that did it. But there just isn't. And that's again why I lean so much into this concept of trust. You have to trust that you're going to try all the different things and something is going to work. And at the end of the day, I don't know if it even really mattered to me what it was that worked, because I was just lucky enough to have a child, however that worked. And I honestly haven't thought too much about, like what I would have done differently, or if we were to have another baby, what would we do next time? Like every journey is going to be so different, and you've just got to try something. Just, put it out there, just make pregnancy a possibility, and then seek the different kinds of support that you have access to. And that's a huge factor too, is making making it known that not everybody has access to the same resources. For some people, IVF's very accessible and affordable, and it works for them. And so other people have very successful IVF stories, whereas other people have IVF horror stories where they have to travel and spend a fortune and repeat the procedures over and over again, and it still doesn't work. So it's not going to be the answer for everybody anyway. And you just never know until you try. And that's, not always necessarily going to feel encouraging for people on a journey. Like, yeah, I am trying. I'm sick of it not working. But really, that's the only way to go about it. There is no magic protocol. If there was, everybody would do it.
And everyone will be offering that magic protocol. The last thing I wanted to ask you about, Kels, was you're very public about your journey, and you have been for many years. And I admire this enormously. It wasn't something I was very comfortable talking about when I was in the midst of my own journey. It was only later that I found it very healing to open up about. But there's something, people find very compelling about being able to go through a journey with someone, even if you don't know that person. I see the way that people respond to you on social media. And I think, what you do for people is so, so valuable. But at the same time, it's this double-edged sword, isn't it? And you end up with these crazy people that just want to offer their 2 cents, want to give you advice, want to tell you that you're wrong. And that's inevitable. And it's just like an amplified version, right, of what happens in real life. You open up about your fertility journey or your loss journey, and people are like, well, my friend did this, my cousin did, but you get it tenfold because you're so public facing. So what advice do you give to people when, you are coming up against these ridiculous comments and just the endless insensitivities of people? And if you can do it with an audience of tens of thousands of people, how can others on their journey do it in their own lives?
I think I do have a unique perspective too, because I kind of have these 2 big chapters to my fertility journey. The first 3 miscarriages I had were with a different spouse at a different point in my life where we weren't really trying for kids. It just, unfortunately, I kept getting pregnant by accident and then miscarrying. And I went through all of that in silence, alone. I hardly talked to even my friends about it. My 3rd miscarriage, I didn't even talk to my spouse about it because you were in the middle of splitting up. Ironically, I found out I was pregnant like right when we were splitting up, and I found out I was miscarrying while we were in the process of splitting up. And I went through that process completely, entirely alone. But that was how I thought I was supposed to do it. It had never occurred to me. This was many, many years ago, before sharing on social media is such a popular thing. And anytime I would kind of bring up my experience in private with friends, they didn't know how to respond. And so it always felt like something I shouldn't talk about or didn't need to. And then I got divorced and moved on from that chapter of my life and didn't think or talk about it for those reasons. But then when I was ready to go on a conception journey with my current partner, I was actually inspired to share by a friend of mine who had an Instagram account dedicated to sharing her fertility journey. And it had never even occurred to me that that was something people did until I saw her doing it. And I thought, wow, that must be such an amazing support for her to have a community of people that know exactly what she's talking about and know what she's going through. And I learned so much from her about medications and, the treatment options available in our area. And I was just in awe of her strength and how she could go through something so hard and yet talk about it in such a natural way, just like anybody else would share a Facebook update about whatever it may be. People would post on Instagram, like, look at my dinner tonight. And she would say, look at my meds today. And it just normalized this journey in a way that it had never even occurred to me. So I owe a huge part of that to her and her bravery in sharing her journey. And once I started kind of engaging in that community, and I'd see the comments from people with accounts that were, just labeled like they were trying to conceive. And I was like, oh man, this is way bigger than I thought it was. This is like not just a friend of mine going through infertility. This is like the whole world. coming together over infertility. Like it just completely blew my mind. So I started sharing on a very just kind of casual basis. I really didn't have a lot of followers, and that wasn't really a goal of mine at all. I was learning and sharing what I was learning and having fun with it. That was also kind of during, COVID lockdown, where we were all just having fun on the internet and just kind of sharing little bits of our little lives. And it became a really big thing for me. It was in a good and a bad way. Once I started to realize, like, wow, there's a lot of people that benefit from me sharing my experience, because my experience is unique. I'm living in a city that doesn't have a fertility clinic, and having to navigate those challenges of doing things remotely or traveling. And I also come from, like I explained before, a more unique background where I didn't even want kids, and now I want them real bad. And so once I could see the value in sharing my story and getting comments and messages from people saying, wow, I'm going through that too, or I feel that way too, and I thought I was the only one who felt that way. It was like, well, I have to keep sharing. Like, how many other people are going to see, even just one little thing that I say, even just the word trusting to conceive can change someone's perspective. And it's like, you know what? There is no amount of, you know, uncomfortable messages or things like that that can take that away. Because if even one person sees my story and decides to keep going, and then they get their dream, like, it's all worth it. Like, I'll take 200 annoying comments to get the one comment from someone that says, you know what, this really made a difference for me in a positive way. Like, that's everything for me, because I've been that person who, didn't know something and then learned it and it changed everything, or it thought I was alone and realized there's someone going through something that I am, and it's okay for me to feel this way. It gives each other permission to, be excited about things that other people might not find exciting, like an early ovulation date or ovulation period, things that other people may take for granted. It's the whole world for some of us. That's an opportunity that I might not have had to have a baby. And sharing my journey has come with lots of ups and downs, but the ups just make it a million times worth it. And the internet can be a really crazy, scary place, but it can be such a beautiful place. That's where I learned all the things that I needed to learn to be able to grow my family. I truly believe I would not have my children if I had not started engaging in this community and learned as much as I have. And just the peace too of, again, knowing you're not alone, because infertility can feel so lonely. Even if you are going through it with a partner who you talk to every day, even if you're going through it with a friend who you talk to all the time about what they're going through, there's still this aspect of, well, I'm the only one experiencing my journey the way I'm experiencing it. And it really, really hurts. So being able to connect with other people and say, you know what, I'm hurting in my own unique way and you're hurting in your own unique way, but we see each other. Sometimes that's all it takes to feel like, well, if she's okay, I'm going to be okay. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about for me, is just, keep going towards your dreams, even if that path changes, even if you end up on an adoption journey or a surrogacy journey, or maybe, you decide that having kids really isn't going to happen for you probably, and you go on a new career journey, or you move to a different country. Your path can take you in so many different ways, and not every path ends with a baby, and not everyone who doesn't have a baby, it's the end of the world and they're miserable. Like, you never know where life is going to take you. You could take you on a journey to 10 kids. I saw a video the other day of someone who's like, 3 years ago, I had my third miscarriage, but now she's having her third baby in 3 years. Like, things can change so much. And if you're not open to it and you don't even know what those possibilities could be for you, like, that's scary, but it's also very exciting.
Thank you for sharing all of that. And thank you for everything that you put out into the world as well. Because as you said, it is so valuable and so worthwhile and so needed, because, gosh, it's a hard journey enough on its own, Thank you, Kels. Where can people connect with you and learn more about you if they want to?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. I am Maiden to Mother to Me. And on TikTok, I am just Maiden to Mother. You can find me elsewhere from those two places, but those are kind of the best places to learn more about me and find ways to connect with me on a one-on-one basis. I absolutely love getting comments and messages and emails from people. I try to respond to as much as I can. And I just want to thank you again for giving me a chance to share my journey and for doing what you do, because what you do is very valuable. Sharing your personal experiences and sharing your professional expertise, it makes a difference. I know it made a difference for me, so I know it's making a difference for a lot of other people too.
Thank you. I will link all of that up in the show notes, and good luck with everything else that is to come on your journey. Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening right to the end of this episode. I really hope you enjoyed hearing about everything that Kelsie shared. And you can join her journey on social media if you want, if you're not already. And I will be putting all of the links down in the show notes so you can jump on and see how it all unfolds for her. Now, just a reminder, if you would like to experience for yourself some of the practices that Kelsie spoke about on this episode, a reminder that I am running a free 3-day live fertility yoga series at the end of this month. You can pop your name down on the waitlist. The link is in the show notes. Following this 3-day live series, you actually have a chance to join the program that Kelsie joined as well. And this is the In Your Element Fertility Yoga program. It is just the most comprehensive mind-body program that you will find anywhere on the internet. And it's something that I am so proud of, is in its 3rd year now, and I have taken hundreds and hundreds of students through this program by this stage, and the way they are able to transform their journeys is just mind-blowing, and it never ceases to amaze me what I see some of these women are able to achieve for themselves. So if you have any questions about any of that, you can always reach out to me, send me a voice note, send me an email or a DM. I love to hear from you. But until then, I am sending you all my wishes as you continue your own journey to fertility. The most common thing I hear from students who are on their fertility journey is that the stress of trying to conceive has taken over their life. Your days end up being filled with endless appointments, navigating pregnancy announcements. You're trying to eat right, take all your supplements, and it is all you think about from the moment you wake up. I designed the Element Fertility Yoga course to support your body, your mind, and your mental health in 3 important ways: to synchronize your hormones, increase circulation and blood flow, and to help regulate your nervous system. But on top of this, the greatest gift that you can give yourself throughout this journey is a sense of peace, to help you calm your mind and just make this process feel easier. Every single one of my students tell me that this is the first thing they notice after starting a yoga, meditation, and breathwork practice. But on top of this, you have the amazing benefit of actually supporting and increasing your fertility. Studies have shown that those participating in mind-body programs as they're trying to conceive have success rates 3 times greater than those who don't. The course I've designed walks you through natural conception as well as fertility treatments and IVF cycles. And the best part is you can work through it at your own pace in the comfort of your home. The practices start from just 10 minutes per day. To learn more, visit elementpilatesyoga.com or see the link in the show notes.